good. So I hope during the keynote session breaks, you guys also find the time to explore what else is going on in this huge venue. Yeah? Yeah. Yeah, all right. Okay, so like I said, we have an event filled with various technologies, innovations, and exciting workshops. And to kickstart the day, we'd like to start with our insightful keynote sessions that we've lined up for you, starting now. I'd like to call upon stage Shireen Bhan, Managing Editor at Network 18, to give us an introduction to Network 18. Please join me in welcoming Shireen.
Good morning, Delhi. You can do better than that. Can we get a loud cheer in the house, please? Thank you. Excellent. All right, my name is Shireen, as Aisha just told you. I've been at CNBC TV 18 for 19 years now. I'm the managing editor at CNBC TV 18. Network 18 is India's largest media conglomerate. We have about 28 channels, web properties like Tech2, Money Control, CNBCTV18.com, and plenty more. But that's not the reason that we're here today. What we are here today is to talk about innovation and how you actually build brands that are profitable, sustainable, and stand the test of time. Now, over the past 18 years, as the series editor and anchor of Young Turks, which is the world's longest-running show on startups and entrepreneurship, I have met some very awe-inspiring individuals and seen India's evolution from an administered, closed economy to an aspiring startup nation. So a big cheer to all the startups in India who are doing a great job today. Now, the idea of a regular middle-class Indian starting up was a romantic one, but was not really considered practical or even realistic. In fact, the crucial question that shattered many entrepreneurial dreams was, "Beta, tujhse shaadi kaun karega?" And I'm glad that we've gone past that. And the only reason I said beta was because the girls were never allowed to have an entrepreneurial dream, and that has changed, and we deserve a big round of applause for that big shift that's happened. So today we have about thousands and thousands of stories of men and women who have had the courage and the tenacity to think differently, think big, and challenge the status quo. But in a hyper-competitive world where 90% of all products and services that are launched failed, what can be the basis for resilience? And I've tried to distill this very quickly into three simple things, which I believe are the three fundamental principles that will stand the test of time: sense, simplicity, and sustainability. In life and in business, we often get caught up in the here and now and forget who we are, what we stand for, and what the problem is that we wanted to solve to start with. Businesses that identify and articulate a very clear purpose will take the first steps towards creating both wealth and value. Purpose is not just about defining your key attributes, it is about setting course, setting direction for where you want to be. Having identified a purpose, a problem, and a customer, a good leader must learn to build businesses and brands. And that is where the principle of differentiation comes in. Businesses obsess too much about being better than the competition. They don't think enough about being different from the competition. And that I think, if some of you are planning to start up, is a fundamental principle that you must consider. As J.K. Rowling said, it's not about our abilities, but the choices that we make that define us. Dealing with market volatility and disruption is the order of the day. Smart entrepreneurs learn to innovate and adapt. While growing up, we've all been taught to fit in. Beta, fit in kar lo, accommodate kar lo, compromise kar lo. But successful businesses are built on ideas that stand out, and that is what you should aspire to do. A great idea alone is not enough. You need to execute a strategy to ensure you change the landscape to suit your advantage. Change the game to suit your strengths. Iconic entrepreneurs like Steve Jobs, Jeff Bezos, and more recently Elon Musk have all understood the importance of leading the change. But if you can't be first, then you better make sure that you are very, very different. As I look back at the last 15 odd years, I can't help but be awe of how much has changed. The most talked about companies that are being recognized as disruptors today and are making headlines for the valuations that they get didn't exist 15 years ago. Facebook, WhatsApp, Uber, Twitter, Snapchat, I think you get the drift. I'm pretty certain 15 years down the line, the list of disruptors will look different, and this is borne out by data. My bet is that life expectancy of companies will shrink even further. But the question we must ask ourselves is, how do we ensure longevity? And I don't just mean walking around like a zombie, waiting for investors to pull the plug kind of longevity, but a thriving, vital, profitable one. I think the key to long-term success is going to be to embrace your core, and that reminds me of a bumper sticker that I have lying around in my office somewhere, and it says, courage is being yourself every day in a world that tells you to be someone else. So don't interpret this to mean not taking risks or staying in your comfort zone. The message is different. What I am suggesting is that take risks, take the bets that you make, the changes that you incorporate, and it must be linked to who you are and what you want to create. As Benjamin Franklin said, if passion drives you, let reason hold the reins. So an entrepreneur must imagine very clearly what you want to create and then create an alignment of your strengths. And that is the perfect segue for me to invite on stage the man who leads a company that's ticked all the boxes that I just spoke of, a company that's been around for almost 170 years, a company that stayed true to its purpose of redefining what glass and material science can do to transform the world, a company that has continued to innovate its way to profitability, a company that truly believes in defying conventional wisdom. John, can we have you up on stage? Ladies and gentlemen, a big Delhi warm welcome to John Bain of Corning Gorilla Glass.
Thank you so much for that introduction. Great, great lessons. Good morning, everybody. Come on, I flew all the way from America. Good morning, everybody. All right. It's great to be back in India. So, especially for an event like Tech2 Innovate. There we go. So, I toured the grounds a little bit yesterday when they were setting up, and I have to tell you, you're in for a treat. It's going to be awesome. Between the sandboxes, the experience, the music, it's going to be a phenomenal event. And it's designed to not only entertain you, but to inform you, and most of all, to inspire you. And when I think about the digital era, the era we're in right now, the last 10 or 15 years, inspiration is the key word. 15 years ago, we couldn't have imagined the amount of connectivity, the internet options we have, social media, the access through mobile devices. So inspiration really defines the digital era. And I think what's important to know is the architects of the digital era were people just like you, just younger in their careers. They developed the infrastructure, the content, and the applications. And now it's your turn to inherit the digital era and bring it forward. Those people had their own journeys, their own stories, just like you have your own story. And I want to start by telling the story of the company that I work for, Corning Incorporated. So Corning's based in a small town in upstate New York. This is actually our headquarters, very peaceful, very rural. We've been around for 168 years, as Shireen said, and we're basically a bunch of engineers and glass scientists, a company of about 50,000 people. And one of our very earliest products was the glass envelope for Thomas Edison's light bulb. And we take a lot of pride that we were there in the very beginning to help launch electricity and light for basically society. And since that time, we've reinvented ourselves multiple times through innovation. So our story is really one of the intersection of innovation and inspiration. And let me give you a few examples. So does anybody here have a smartphone? Anybody? Of course. Everybody does. The question is, who doesn't have a smartphone? Maybe somebody left it in the bus or Uber. Feel sorry for that person. But everybody has a smartphone. Just think about that for 1 second. At no other point in human history have more people carried the same object on their body as a smartphone. In 5,000 years, not eyeglasses, not watches. So we're at a point in history where more people carry the same object on their body than ever before. And if you take out your phone and look at it, there's dozens of components in that phone. The thing you touch every day is glass. Most likely glass developed by Corning and manufactured by Corning. In the last 12 years, we've been used on 7 billion devices. That's part of the Corning story, and to me, that's inspiration. Let me give you another example. Has anybody checked a photo or video on their phone in the last hour? I'm guessing everybody, except the person who left their phone in the Uber, right? But everybody's looked at a photo or video. Have you ever thought how that photo got on your phone? Probably not. You just take it for granted. But in the network that connects the internet is optical fiber. And here's a spool of it right here. Corning was the first company in the early 70s to develop low-loss optical fiber. Let me tell you how this works. That photo you're looking at is digitized into zeros and ones. A laser pulsing 100 billion bits per second, 100 billion bits a second, think about that, goes down a fiber roughly the diameter of a human hair. And not only one laser, you can put 80 lasers with 80 different wavelengths down the same fiber, the diameter of a human hair, each pulsing at 100 billion bits a second. That's how the internet works. And that technology was developed by Corning. So that's part of the Corning story, and to me that's inspiration. And then lastly, I assume people have been in a car or a bus over the last week. Everybody had to, right, to get here, to travel. So the combustion process, whether it's gas or diesel, makes nasty chemicals. And those chemicals can end up in the air we breathe. Corning developed an emission controls technology to scrub those bad chemicals before they enter the atmosphere. Since 1974, Corning technology has kept 4 billion tons of hydrocarbons out of the air we breathe. 4 billion tons. 4 billion tons of nitrogen oxide, 40 billion tons of carbon monoxide. Those are stunning numbers. That's part of the Corning story, and to me that's inspiration. So I've given you 3 examples just in the last 30 to 40 years where Corning's made a big difference on society to help the digital era, smartphones and connecting the internet. And all these speak to innovation. Now the key to our success, one of the keys, and you may find this surprising, is a willingness to fail. If you're going to innovate for a living, eventually you're going to fail. In fact, Shireen quoted the statistics, 90% of innovations aren't successful. But just because something fails doesn't mean you're a failure. It means the project was a failure. You get judgment, you get experience, you get intuition, and you innovate again. And if you don't have this willingness to fail or learn to fail, you simply can't be an innovator. If you look at our strongest leaders, whether they're coaches or business people or people in the media like Shireen, they've all struggled at some point in their life. They've struggled, they've learned, they've persevered, and that's how they get to be success. So failure is a prerequisite for success. So as you write your own story and go forward in your own life, if you want to innovate for a living, you have to realize you are going to fail and have setbacks, but you have to get up, dust yourself off, and keep moving forward to get to that big invention. You look at Thomas Edison, one of the most prolific inventors ever. He did the light bulb, the phonograph, telephones. He tried to mine iron out of the earth, a failure. He tried to do early motion pictures by putting his head in a box with pictures and audio. It was a failure. His teacher said he was too stupid to learn as a student, yet he has 1,000 patents, one of the greatest inventors ever. Fast forward to modern day, Jeff Bezos. I recently read that 2/3 of Amazon's ideas don't go forward, but the third that do change society. So a very important lesson if you're going to innovate for a living. Let me make it very personal to Corning, how we've failed in the past and it's led to success. 1968, we came up with an idea to strengthen glass to penetrate the windshield market in the US, the automobile market. We took what we thought was a great idea to the US automakers, and they said, not doing it for us. Don't like the price point, don't like the performance. It's basically a failure. So when we had that conversation, they said, but oh, by the way, these new emission standards are going to be deployed in the US and throughout the world, and we need a way to clean up the atmosphere. That was the birth of the emissions control product I talked about before. So that was the first success out of the failure of windshield glass. Then fast forward to 2006, 2007. The earliest smartphones had plastic on them. They scratched. We got a call from a major OEM brand and said, we want to put glass in the first smartphones. We went back to the glass we made in 1968. We tweaked the formula, we made it on some new assets, and in 6 months we were in production. And that was the birth of the Gorilla Glass business. So out of that failure in 1968, 2 major successes for Corning. So our story, the Corning story, is all about infrastructure. Your story can be about infrastructure, equipment, apps, content. Everybody has a different story. Look around you. Everybody's on a different journey. The key thing I want you to ask yourself as you walk around here over the next couple of days is your story going to matter? Will it matter tomorrow what you do in your career? Will it matter a week from now? A year from now? Will it matter in 168 years? It's your story. You're going to write it. You just have to be willing to fail and learn and keep moving forward because you are going to inherit the legacy of the digital era. Let me give you a couple examples of people you can interact with here at this Tech2 Innovate event. Mark Johnson. So Mark Johnson lives in California, San Francisco, and in 2002, he was inspired by street music. Over time, he started a movement where he would take popular songs and have musicians from throughout the world play parts of the song on their local instruments, and then he blends this together in an entire music video and puts it on YouTube. And this band is called Playing for Change. And he takes the proceeds that they raise from this and he works on social causes, a lot of work with kids for arts and music schools in developing countries. And he'll have a sandbox here Saturday, and also his band's going to be playing here Saturday night. You don't want to miss it. It's going to be phenomenal. And Mark has a love affair with Indian musicians. He's worked very closely with Tushar Lal, who I had the pleasure of meeting yesterday. And Tushar runs the Indian Jam Project, where he takes popular songs and plays them with Indian instruments and Indian musicians and takes his own take on it. And he's done Imagine Dragons Love as Mark's band Playing for Change, and Tushar and Playing for Change will be playing together tomorrow night. And once again, you really don't want to miss it. Then, are there any gamers out there? Any gamers? A couple? I'm sure, right? So gamers love the infrastructure I talked about. You guys and girls are all about feeds and speeds, right? And all this is enabled by the optical fiber I talked about. Now, I know PUBG is a great game now. Before I came over, my son tried to teach me how to play it. After 20 minutes of running around in my underwear shooting people on my own team, he said, "Dad, just give me the phone. I can't watch this anymore." But gamers have their own story to tell, whether you're playing or writing the games. And Xiaomi has a phenomenal booth outside, a gaming zone, which you have to check out if you like PUBG. But once again, it's all about finding your own journey and writing your own story. Now, I've talked a lot about individual stories, but sometimes our stories have to come together as a group. And when we think about the environment, this is a group story. The environment's in trouble. And I talked a little bit about how Corning has tried to make improvements, significant improvements in air quality, and we're very proud about that. Another cause we're passionate about is gorillas. So because it's our namesake, Victor Gorilla, and you can see it in our booth, we've worked in the past to support rescuing the endangered species. Several species of the gorilla are endangered, and we work closely with Diane Fossey Gorilla Fund. So going forward, we'll be working with them, giving them mobile devices that helps them with data collection and tracking the gorillas, and it's really a story that needs a good ending. So I encourage you, you can't do everything to save the environment or all the causes, but pick one or two causes on your journey through life as you write your own story and make sure you're giving back. For us, it's through how we clean up the air and gorillas, but everybody has their own cause. Now with that, I hope you have a great show. I hope you're inspired, and I hope you're on your journey to writing your own story. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. Hang in there. We're getting the chairs on stage so that we can have a little bit more of a conversation on some of the issues that you just spoke of. I don't know if you guys saw that gorilla there in the background, and if you haven't visited the Corning stall, maybe you should. I believe he has a name. He's called Victor. You can get your photographs taken as well. A former colleague of mine got me to take one already. So John, thank you very much for giving us a heads up on what we should expect for the next 48 hours here if you're visiting the Tech2 Innovate. Please have a seat.
Thank you.
I want to start by asking you, you know, from the light bulb to the smartphone, what a journey it's been for Corning, almost 170 years. We talked about disruption. We talked about how many of the companies of the past are no longer relevant today. How has Corning managed to stay relevant over a century and a half?
Couple reasons. One, we're based on glass and glass ceramics. So we inherited a legacy of a phenomenal material. It's a material we all take for granted. It's all around us, but rarely do we stop and say, why is glass so special? Well, it's highly transparent, it's thermally stable, it's chemically stable, it has so many uses. It can be used obviously for window glass, but it can be used in liquid crystal displays to put millions of transistors. It can be strengthened, it can go from extreme heat to cold. So we have this benefit of having a wonderful material to work with. But that doesn't guarantee our success. What we do is we've realized that when you're in business, any market segment, the ground underneath you is shifting, it's crumbling. Sometimes very fast, sometimes very slow. But you have to realize no matter how strong your market position is, there are competitors every day coming after you. So you have to run a little bit scared, and you have to be committed to innovation, knowing that people are going to threaten you, and you have to continue to evolve. I'll give you a quick example. CRT TVs. Some of you may not know, but the TVs used to be this thick for 50 years using cathode ray technology. Well, in the 70s, people started to make little watches using liquid crystal displays, passive matrix, tiny. That was the beginning of the end of the CRT TV. It took 25 years for that tiny liquid crystal technology to turn into a 70-inch TV, but eventually did, and CRT is dead now. We transitioned from CRT to liquid crystal television by anticipating that inflection point and moving the company in that direction. So always run a little scared, always stay humble, and always innovate.
Well, I think that's a key lesson. How many of you here actually watch television? I mean, consume on television? Anybody here who actually consumes on television, or are you all on your smartphones? Wow, this is the millennial generation that we're dealing with. Nobody's watching television anymore, and that's scary for people like me. But you know, you were talking about innovation, you were talking about disruption. This is the smartphone that we've all gotten used to. In terms of form factor now, with all the changes in technology, and what you can do more with glass, what should we expect? What is the smartphone of the future going to look like?
It's interesting. We think about it all the time. Is the smartphone going to be gone in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? We just don't know. I think the form factor is pretty cool, because if you go back to the very first smartphones, the iPhone for example, the form factor has not changed dramatically, right? It's very similar. So for 12 to 13 years, it's been that same basic size, goes in our front pocket, our back pocket, incredibly functional. You pull it out, you look at it, you put it back, all the apps. I think there'll be other products, augmented reality, bendable, that may supplement it, but I honestly think the smartphone's here to stay for quite some time.
The smartphone is here to stay. John, I want to talk to you a little bit about India, because you are here visiting us. The India story is looking exciting from a smartphone perspective, from a data penetration perspective, from an internet penetration perspective. How excited are you about the India story, and where do you see it over the next few years?
Well, given the fact it's the only region in the world that's growing in smartphone penetration, we're very excited. In fact, India just passed the United States for a number of smartphones purchased each year. So,
big round of applause for that, guys.
Well done, well done. And the other thing is we're seeing people buy that entry-level smartphone, and then when they go 2 or 3 years to that next phone, they tend to move up the line. And companies like Xiaomi offer great entry-level phones, but also intermediate phones and premium phones that compete with the best phones in the world. So I think it's a very exciting marketplace for Corning. Our strategy in India is, number one, offer the best products. Wherever we're offering anywhere in the world to any company, we offer to the local brands and also the global brands. But also we try and tailor our solution to the Indian consumer. Sometimes we'll see some of the entry-level phone brands try and use a cheaper glass to save a couple rupees on the phone, but the poor person who's just buying their first entry-level phone, they can't afford to have a broken phone. They can't afford to fix it. They can't afford a replacement. So we've developed glass options for maybe 10 or 15 rupees more, have some of our best glasses to protect that consumer because, let's be honest, the Indian consumers put their phones through quite the test.
Yes,
right?
we do. Yes, we do. We do put our phones to quite the test. But John, you know, you're every parent's nightmare because, and I think Indian parents specifically, because even if a child comes home with 99 out of 100 on their report card, the parents are like, but where did that 1 mark go? And you were talking about failure and how it's okay to fail and that shouldn't weigh you down. Take me through a personal anecdote. You took us through what happened in 1968, which was a failure for Corning, and how that translated into a success many years later. But personally, as a leader, take us through a personal anecdote of where you failed and how that changed you.
Oh, great question. I'll give you a couple examples. So I went off to college, like we all do, wanting to make our parents proud. And I remember one of the first tests I took, I didn't fail, but I was awfully close to failing, and I was devastated. I thought I'd let my parents down. I remember writing a letter to my father specifically and saying, Dad, I did the best I could, but it wasn't good enough, and I'm not sure I can make it here. I'm going to try, but I'm not sure how well I'm going to do in school. And he wrote me a letter back, which I still have today. I keep it in my desk. And he basically said, look, if you do the best you can, that's all we've ever asked. And I'm sure it will be fine, and we're proud of you no matter what. And I think that lesson is so important. I use it with my own children and my leadership team. If you do the best you can, people can't ask anything else. And sometimes it will be enough, it will be more than enough, and sometimes it won't be because the competition's a little better. But once again, because you failed a test or a product you launched wasn't successful, you're not a failure. That single effort was, and you can't let it define you. So that was a personal story. A professional story is about 8 years ago.
Whoops.
Okay. I ran a project for Corning, and the project lost a couple $100 million. It was a big project. We took a plant down. We built a new plant. We thought we had a key order. The customer walked away from us, and I lost that money for Corning, never made it back. I took accountability. I played back why we weren't smarter when we built the plant and assessing the market, and I committed I would make that money back and more for Corning in the rest of my career, which I think I have. But I've had some significant setbacks in the professional career as well. But you can't let it define you, and you have to realize it's just, as I said, part of the innovation process.
Absolutely, and I think acknowledging the fact that things haven't worked to plan and then learning from that experience, that is the key. I'm going to throw this open to the audience. If you have a question, raise your hands for John, and I will get a microphone across to you. Keep your question short. Anyone here with a question before I go back to John? Yes. So if you can stand up, it'll be easier for them to spot you so that they can get a microphone across to you. And there's another gentleman right there coming to you as well. Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, hello, John.
Hi.
Good evening. Sorry, good afternoon. So, you're talking about smartphone Gorilla Glasses that is changing maybe current decade of smartphones and all. But we still see the glasses you put on smartphones that catch scratches in the Mohs scale of hardness starting from 6. Correct. So, can we see any improvement in future? Let's say the scratch may be gonna start on more, small scale hardness number. We are not asking you to directly put sapphire that have a point of 8 and 9 is diamond. But at least, pocket sands and normal dust has some particles. Those are in most scale of hardness 6 and 7. So let's say my smartphone has Corning Gorilla Glass 3, but it has scratches.
Okay, so what can you do? He's giving you some wriggle room. He's saying, okay, we can accommodate this much of improvement, if not all the way. So what can you tell him?
Very good question. So we survey the market constantly, and the #1 complaint is smartphones still break. The #2 complaint is they scratch. So we've focused a lot of our glass development efforts on solving the drop problem. So each successive generation of Gorilla has done better for drop, and the current flagship product, Gorilla Glass 6, is outstanding. Maybe a little spoiler alert, in the near future, you may see another version that's going to be even better. But to your point, when can we focus more on scratch? Gorilla Glass 3 is the best glass out there for scratch compared to any other glass, but still improvements can be made. People are keeping their phones longer. It used to be every 2 years, new phone. Now people carry it 3 or 4 years. It's exposed to more damage, and it's surviving more drops. So that's when you're seeing more scratch. And people said, boy, I've had my phone a long time, and now I'm not as worried about drop, I'm more worried about scratch.
Yeah.
So it's a hard physical problem to solve. You're going to see improvements in the next generation in scratch. And it's a complicated topic, scratches. And I think we'll be on this journey for a while, but understand the frustration, and we're working on it.
They're working on it. Thank you very much. If you can pass the microphone to the gentleman right behind you in the denim jacket. Go ahead, sir.
Hello, my name is Ashish Arora, and my question is that recently Samsung launched Galaxy Z Flip, and they in-house developed a foldable glass of some sort which they've included in the Galaxy Z Flip. So is there any plan for Corning for foldable smartphones? Do they have any plan for incorporating their technology, Corning Gorilla Glasses technology, into foldable smartphones, which are the next big thing?
Yes, yeah, good question. So the outside of that device actually has Gorilla Glass 6 to protect it.
It is,
the
but
inside,
the inside
yeah,
of that.
on the inside you're seeing people try plastic and glasses. Our view is our glass product isn't quite ready for mainstream. If you look at the existing solutions, I think they all have challenges. Plastic will still scratch, and even some of the glass solutions have certain drawbacks. So we will absolutely participate in this market. We're not panicking yet because I think bendable in general is going to be a slow roll.
Okay.
I think the price point it's not going to be mass adoption right away, and we don't want to bring a glass product to market until we know for sure it's the right solution, and we're getting close. We will absolutely participate, but we're not quite there yet.
A broad timeline of when we can expect that? You
Yeah,
said
that
you're
was
close,
my question as
not
well.
close enough. So broad timeline of when we can expect it?
I think you'll start to see samples second half of this year and maybe into mass production next year. And I think, as I said, I think the growth of bendables will be a little bit slower than smartphones took off after about 1 to 2 years. They really took off. I think bendables may be a little bit slower adoption.
Okay, that's not so far out. Yes, sir, you've got a question right here, and then I'll come to you.
Hi, John.
Hi.
This is Abhay Kochar. I have two questions. First question is, why Gorilla only? The product name is why Gorilla. And another thing is about innovation. Startups is all about innovation, and the theme of the event is innovate, right? So how we can foresee the things that we can have and in future, and we need to focus it on for building a business around it.
I'm sorry, the second question?
Yeah, I'll rephrase that. So one, why Gorilla,
Yep.
if you can answer that. And the second question is, how do you anticipate change? How do you make bets for the future? As an innovative company, what is the process? Is it outside in? Is it inside out?
Okay,
How do
got
you
it,
place
okay.
bets for the future?
So the easy question, why Gorilla? When we first started this project in 2006, we gave it an internal code name. We knew we needed a glass that was very tough, and we thought for couple hours and said, gorillas are tough. Let's call it Internal Project Gorilla, and we'll name it later. We got the glass ready to go to market. We said, okay, what's going to be the external name? Long list of 20 names. Nothing was better than Gorilla Glass, so we went with the internal project name, and it seemed to stick, and it's fit very well for us. On the innovation part, I think a lot of times people will tell you, get voice of the customer. And then they'll say, like Steve Jobs, ignore the customer. Nobody asked for a smartphone. We gave it to them. I think it's a mix of both. I think you need to stay very close to your customers. The big OEMs are so creative in what they do with electronic devices, and partner with them, but also try and anticipate kind of orthogonal opportunities that nobody's thinking about and get out in front. And like I said, always run scared. Never be complacent, because every day somebody's coming after you. And a lot of times it's just, can you outwork the competition? Because everybody's looking at the same facts, the same data, reading the same journals, and a lot of times it's not the creative idea, it's how you execute, and does your team go fast enough?
Absolutely, and it is about creating new categories in the marketplace, not just replicating the ones that exist. Yes, sir, go ahead.
Good afternoon, John. My name is Rakshak Sehgal. I'm an employee in Johnson Matthey, and we deal in emission control technologies. In your presentation, you told us that Corning is dealing in emission control technologies. Can you please tell how Corning is helping in preventing an environment?
So it's not that we're getting in. We started that business in 1974, and we continue to evolve. So the earliest products were to keep gas particulates out of the atmosphere, and then when diesel combustion became more prevalent, we did filters for big diesel trucks. And now there's a new technology called gas particulate filter to make cars run more efficiently. We are a leader in that category as well, and also for power plants, scrubbing the exhaust from major power plants. And the numbers I showed you, I don't know how you look at those numbers and you're not blown away by the billions of tons of bad stuff out of the atmosphere. So like I said, we're very proud of participating in that market. And we've been a market leader for 30 or 40 years now, but just because we're a market leader doesn't mean we're not going to keep innovating and supporting new technologies.
So you are designing GPF filters?
GPF, yes, we do make GPF filters. Yep.
Yeah, you've got your own little session going on here. Thank you very much for your question. I think we're out of time on this one. John, you're wearing a Bruce Springsteen t-shirt. Is there a song that sums up your philosophy and your approach to life?
Oh, very well. I think Born to Run, right? When you innovate, you're always running forward. So yes, Born to Run.
Thank you very much, John. Wish you the very best of luck. Thanks for stopping by here in India. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause. Thank you for your time. Don't go anywhere. We've got a lot of cool, exciting stuff coming up. I've been promised that we're going to show you how you can break stuff. That's coming up in just a bit. But John and I are going to go off stage, and I'm going to call Aisha back on.
Great.
Thanks
Thank
very
you,
much,
Shireen.
John. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Shireen and John. That was truly insightful. At Tech2 Innovate, we're all about culture, tech, next, now, and it was actually really thrilling to see someone talk about the future while keeping the past in mind and heavily, firmly footed into the present. So thank you for that. I see a lot of you guys have just rolled in. Welcome to Tech2 Innovate. This is the keynote stage. We just had a really brilliant beginning to our day. Find a spot and get cozy or not, because a lot of really cool things are happening. In fact, up next, we have Anuj Sharma, the CMO of Xiaomi India, and he's going to come here and talk to you guys right now. So please give him a warm, warm welcome to this stage.
Is this on? All right, thank you. Any Me fans here? Thank you. So let me get started with this itself. We've not been here very long, clearly. The company is called Xiaomi. I understand the thing because in India, the only X that we've had is probably a Xavier's or a Xerox. But this X is very different. I'm assuming as we go along, in about 5 years' time, it's going to be Xavier's and not Xavier's, the way Xiaomi is. So it's called Xiaomi, like show me the money. Right? So it's pretty close to that. For myself, I'm Anuj, and pretty much like John, I also wear my philosophy on the t-shirt. And of course, we are all here because we love technology, and there's nobody else, I think, who does technology better than Xiaomi. Moving on, this is largely coming because of our core philosophy. Our philosophy right from the start. And our start was less than 10 years ago. So between Corning and Xiaomi, we are completely opposite in one way. And of course, we also share very common philosophies in others. Now, less than 10 years ago, when we started Xiaomi, the whole idea was to get the best of innovation to as many people as possible. And innovation is what we think is the key for the entire economy, for the world to move forward. And that's where we got started. Of course, in India, it's just been about 5+ years. Another different part about Xiaomi compared to most of the tech brands is there wasn't really a business that existed before we got into the tech business, which makes it a little difficult for us to be in Delhi, because when somebody asks, you know, the most common saying that happens in Xiaomi, not Xiaomi, sorry, in Delhi, what would it be? If a cop stops you in Delhi, what do you say? तू जानता है मेरा बाप कौन है? Well, we don't have a BAP. We started off with just the innovation, and of course, we've reached this far. Now, in India, in just about 5 years, we've had a tremendous journey. In 5 years, we've become perhaps not just the most loved technology brand, but the most loved brand altogether. We are leading, and I'm just waiting for this to change here. We are the leaders in smartphones, but not just smartphones, also in smart TVs. I don't know how many people know that Xiaomi in smart TVs is now bigger than Sony in India. Xiaomi is bigger. Some people know. Xiaomi is bigger than Sony. Xiaomi is also bigger than Samsung in smart TVs in India. And Xiaomi is bigger than LG in smart TVs in India. In fact, for us, in smart TVs, we are bigger than all of these three put together. So it's that big. And again, the whole idea has been innovation for everyone. All our products carry that philosophy. And of course, happy to share, as of this week, IDC has called out the numbers. We have been leading the smartphone market since 2007. It's been 10 quarters. But what's really interesting is not just 10 quarters, for the first time ever, we became the #1 phone brand. Not just smartphones, but smartphones plus feature phones all put together. We have now become the biggest phone brand in the country. And that is largely due to a couple of things. It's our philosophy. Of course, a lot of the Mi fans would know this philosophy. Get the best specs at an honest price. But the core fundamental pillar, no business can survive without the quality part of it. And we have always insisted on having the highest possible quality for all our products. In fact, we have been consistently rated as the highest quality product provider in the country, far higher than everyone else in this business. And why does this happen? Largely because we believe our innovation needs to be for the consumers. So we are making in India, but we're also making for India. And that's where it starts making a difference. A couple of examples that I would like to give. Now, we as Indians don't really handle phones the same way as the global market. There are a lot more times we drop our phones a lot more often. And we've reinforced the corners for the Indian market. Or, if I take it up, we've worked with our global partners to get a waterproof or water-resistant coating on most of our phones. Actually, it started off with a very interesting story when, way back, we were discussing this with some of our consumers in coastal areas. And what we realized, I'm just going to wait for this to move as well. In coastal regions, the phones tended to get a lot more corroded at the ports. So the charging port and the headphone jack, where there's a lot more electricity that's passing by, saw their ports getting corroded in about a year, year and a half, and that still happens for most of the phones. What we did was, okay, this is now working, okay, now it is. We've put a corrosion protection for all the buttons and the ports. This has doubled the overall life cycle of a particular product from Xiaomi. So this innovation that's coming in from the consumers and of course making their way into the products and then going back out is one of the key reasons why Xiaomi continues to lead in this market. And of course, not just corrosion, but we've done a couple of other things, like in the hotter temperatures in India, we use a dual pyrolytic graphite sheet. So your surface temperature of your phone is almost 2 degrees lower than anything else that's out there. Or we do have a lot more power cuts. And all our chargers, any phone that you buy from Xiaomi, whether it could be a 6,000 rupee phone or it could be a 30,000, 40,000 rupee phone, all adapters come with a surge protector. Now, why this happens? Because we, of course, know that there are a lot more power cuts, and sometimes when the power kicks back in, you will suddenly see a surge go up to almost 300 volts. That is one of the key reasons why you end up with fried adapters and sometimes phones. So all of these learnings have been kind of built into our phones. And of course, one of the big learnings was the fact that most people tend to kind of drop or scratch their phones. They will put their phones in their pockets with keys, coins, whatever you can. And that's where we've partnered with Corning to get their Gorilla Glass on more and more devices. In fact, we've got more than 30 devices that actually carry Corning's Gorilla Glass. And this, of course, includes all the latest generation phones, the Redmi 8A, the Redmi 8, the Note 8, the Note 8 Pro, all the way to the K series, which is the K20 and the K20 Pro, all doing exceedingly well. In fact, since our launch, which was just about 4 months ago, every month we've sold a few million phones in this. And this, again, is a little heavy slide, but I'll just wait for that to happen. I don't know, it's been, I think Xiaomi should get into these as well. Yeah, we need to change this. Okay, so our entire current generation has Corning's Gorilla Glass 5, in some cases even at the back. So that's how we have been adapting for the Indian market, ensuring that you have the best possible quality across any price point that you buy from Xiaomi. So a great big thank you to the Corning team for partnering with us, to of course providing great products to all of you guys. So thanks, Chris. Well, that's enough for me. I think back to... Oh, that's... Okay, you're coming back on straight.
Thank you.